Hello everyone, it's Wednesday, and if you looked at last Wednesday, I did a video on is Premium Collection 2019 well designed or not? And we're gonna do it again for Premium Collection 2020, because arguably, this set also has some really badly designed cards, so we're gonna rate them now. Now, compared to last time I did like a graph, and I think it confused some people on like, is something like well designed or not, or the criteria just wasn't there. Maybe people got a bit confused. So we're just gonna make it very, very easy. It's just gonna be a tier list, and the cards at the top will likely be well designed, and the cards at the bottom will likely be badly designed. Now, I just want to point out, this is not a list about whether the card is broken or not, right? Or tier 1. If it is like broken, it is likely going to the terribly designed section because it was just not designed well, and that's why it's broken. That's pretty much it, right? I think broken cards are worse than just poor cards, you know? Like, if a card sucks, like, it just isn't very good, there is a chance it's still a good design, right? It's a good design, it's a good creative idea, but it probably wasn't executed well. But at least it has a chance to maybe become better in the future based on, like, releases. But if a card is broken, right? If a card is already broken, then it's ruining things. It is definitely ruining things. So I think there's like no redemption there. So overall, that's basically how I'm gonna rate it. Also another thing, if a card is like very uncreative, right? And there are some uncreative cards here, or cards that kind of ignore absolutely everything, or like a certain part of the game, then I don't think they can become like well-designed cards. Like, they can't become the top tier, right? Because it's really just ignoring certain parts of the game really make it so it's very hard to design things in the future, I'd guess, because you're like absolutely just, if you have this card, this part of the game is ignored. So there will be some of these cards here, and I will point them out, right? But after, like, from that, let's just kind of get started, right? Let's kind of get started on rating these. Now, first off, if you guys, by the way, if you guys see a Zarzan here, this is because I use this list for Zarzan stuff. But I'm not going to use it, right? Cyclone is basically the vanilla stripe. So that is just to unconfuse people. So let's kind of get started on what is good and what is not. I can easily tell you what is not good in this set. And the first thing is, and this card is banned, is Nuadayo. I don't know why. When you design this set, you know that Hugo is a thing. It is the easiest thing in existence to just pull this off, right? And then you give it multiple effects that are absolutely broken. Multi-attack and guard restrict. Who came up with this stuff? Whoever came up with this shouldn't be designing cards. And the thing is, I know back then, right? Back then we said that, okay, if we like choice restrict this with Hugo, right? It can be a bit harder to like make things happen, but the reality is that this actually stops design of Murakumo in a way, right? There is no way you can ever print anything that copies anything. Now they've released like more reverses. It's just even easier to do things. So 100% terrible design, should be banned. Very, very cool, right? Very, very cool that it's banned. So good stuff. It goes to terrible design. Very easy, terrible design. Another card that is probably terrible design is, I'm going to say Stunverse, right? This card is... Actually, there are a few cards that are very similar to Stunverse, and I'm going to rate them all, like, right now. Okay, so we got Crystal Luster and Chain Ranker. Chain Ranker is arguably the worst out of all three, simply because Luard has way better things. Well, not Luard, Shadow Paladin, sorry. I went ahead of myself, right? But yeah, Shadow Paladin has better things, but at least it makes some of the badder decks better. Crystal Luster, again, like, basically does the same thing. It just says whatever your grade 3 is, it's better now. It has an extra drive. It has a guard restrict at GB3. Not very creative design, right? Not very creative design, but at least it makes some decks more playable. It's like a base, right? If all your strides suck or don't work with whatever you're playing, then at least you have your grade 3. Now, this actually does limit grade 3s a bit, right? But I don't think like grade 3s are ever so overpowered to a point yet where striding into a slightly better version of self with guard restrict is broken. But again, it's not very creative. It's just like a get out of jail card, I guess. It's like, hey, yeah, it's just you, but better, right? So not really crazy. The thing is that is ridiculous though with Stunverse is that it's basically you bind 4 cards on their field and drop zone, then you draw a card for each card that is like in their bind zone. Every 4 cards in their bind zone, right? And they also like bind stuff from their hand too. So it's literally like these Crystal Luster and Chain Rankers on drugs. So you don't go back to your grade, so you're still playing grade 3, but your plus is so insane, it's actually just dumb. So of course there's ways, like you say, just get good, play around it, because that's how everything is, right? You know, get good, play around it. But there comes to a point where you just can't play around it no matter how good you are. And Stunverse is kind of getting to that level, especially now where you pair it with Exterminate, right? So 2 things that are bad with it. 1, it turns your grade 3 into... your grade 3 matters, right? Your grade 3 matters, so you have to make sure you don't design super broken grade 3s, but that's usually fine. Grade 3s aren't super broken to a point. But now, you're tacking it on with a super good effect. It's not just like, oh, GB3, guard restrict, and it's your grade 3. No, it's actually like, you plus a billion, well not a billion, you plus a lot, they minus a lot, and then you just keep on going, right? You just keep on going. So overall, terrible design. I don't know how, like, the better grade 3s they design with Stunverse around, that just means the deck just gets better, because you're just going back to your grade 3 after minusing and plussing insane amounts, right? And again, I have to say, after they print Exterminate Dragon now, this card, there's like 0 ways to play around Stunverse at all. That's just it. It's just terrible design, not very creative. Not much more to say. Not much more to say. Let's kind of talk about like a good card instead, okay? Geomaglis. I think this is a very well designed card. The only thing I will say bad about Geomaglis is that it centers a lot of Dimension Police around this card, because it just gives so much value to like grade 3s for Dimension Police. But it does, it's still good, right? It's still good, right? It does multi-attack, fits the Dimension Police game plan very, very well, right? Fits it very, very well. And just overall, this card is basically the glue that is keeping Dimension Police very, very playable. Like, Dimension Police probably went from like a tier 3 deck to a high tier 2 / arguably tier 1, and it's only getting better. Again, I just have to say, is like, this card just focuses so much around itself, but I do see a future where people run like 1 copy or 2 copies of this card, for example. Yeah, 2 copies of this card. And then that's just kind of it. That's good enough, right? If you ever first try Geomaglis, nice defensive, but if better strides come along, this card can still get replaced. Or maybe you're just not so much focusing on defense, or maybe you don't have that heavy grade 3 counts anymore. That's that. It actually made like heavy grade 3 count Dimension Police or high grade 3 count Dimension Police very, very playable, which is good. I think this is great design, and the prices reflect that. And another good design, I have to say, is I think Genbolt is pretty good design. Right? You have great draw, great retire power, but you do come up with a weakness in that you just don't get that much power overall. Like, you can do the Aqua Force things. This is like, on one side you have like something like Alexandros, which does multi-attack with power, but this one does multi-attack, but you draw. Right? You draw and plus. Like, it's just ultimate plus. So overall, I think this is just, it fits like a different niche, and it lets you just do things like it just gives you options, which is exactly what you want from a stride deck. Aqua Force overall at the time was like okay. With this, it's like even better. So I just think this is a well-designed card. Okay, let's kind of talk about cards with okay design. I kind of want to just kind of differentiate the top design and the okay design. With okay design cards are either creative or they're just like filling a niche. They don't have to be super broken. The well-designed cards are just cards that are like making clans just good, like good, without breaking the entire game so much. So I think that's probably going to be the main differentiation. An okay card, okay design will be something like Frederica, right? This is the Bermuda Highlander card. It's cool. It's creative. Again, back then we were talking about like making V decks playable. And Highlander just came out in V, right? So this is helping that idea out. The thing is, the biggest difference between the V Highlander and this build, this card, is that V V Highlander didn't require your triggers to be different, but when they kind of designed this card in premium, they're like, there are way more triggers in premium, so we're gonna slap on that restriction too, and make you have to have different triggers. So that's kind of a detriment, but right now, you know, with D out, there's like so many high defensive power triggers, it just gets better and better. So this is technically a card that is getting better and better, and maybe like, well, right now Highlander is one of the better decks in premium too, so this might actually get into like become a good stride and just get better and better. I don't see this become like super broken, though. The one thing I want to say is that this doesn't require any counterblast. So I guess because there's no restrictions there, I'm going to put it down into just okay design, as well as it just being kind of a niche card at the moment. But I do kind of see maybe in the future where this becomes a legitimate card to go into, just because it doesn't allow your opponents to do anything about it, right? It's just like, do you want to damage deny me? Okay, no problem. GG no re, just go into this, boom. They're dead. Right? So, overall, this is kind of okay design. I'm going to put a card into bad design as well, and that is the Nova Grappler. I don't even know the name of this card. It's a weird alien-looking thing. Actually, I think it's Asdabalk, right? Randomly grabbing the name. This card is just a very poorly designed card. It actually just doesn't do anything for the clan at all, in my opinion. The effect is so mediocre that I don't even see a place in your G-Zone for this card. That's just it. That's just how bad it is. The only reason why it doesn't go to terrible design is that it's not broken. Right? It doesn't break the game, so it just goes to bad design. And another card that goes into bad design, I think, is the Tachikaze card. This, I think it's Gyuncha Raptor? Alright? Whenever I go into this card, I go, why am I not just staying on Anger Blader? Because it's just better. Right? I think Anger Blader is just better. Losing out on the effect where you can just put everything you want as an equip gauge absolutely sucks. So I think this is just a poor design. I don't know. Tachikaze mains, hit me up in the comments. Tell me why I'm wrong. But I just never see why I'd want to go into this. It does so little for what it should be doing, and its intended audience, which is ideally the Anger Blader play, is just not good enough. Right? It just sucks. That's it. Unfortunate. Let's talk about cards that just kind of negate mechanics overall. So we have Zambust. I remember this card. I revealed it. Very simple effect. It just retires your opponent's whole field and gives your front row grade 3s, taking power. I think this is a mid card. I actually think this is a mid card. By the way, this is not in any orders at all, right? Whatever is just in the row is just there. The reason why I think this is a mid card is that, again, it's a very simple effect, but if you ever have any retire problems as Kaguru, and surprisingly, people do, right? You would just throw this card in the G-Zone, and there is no reason why you would not throw this card in the G-Zone. There is literally no downsides to this effect, apart from it not doing anything else other than a board wipe. But because it's just so simple, like it's just a simple board wipe, we'll just go in, right? It's just, you can just put in one, and it's just a straight up option, and there's nothing else you have to do, right? What do you have to do for this cost? It is costless, by the way. You turn a card face up in your G-Zone, and bam, the board is gone. It feels a bit unrestricted, right? Now, there might come a point where there's cards that are just so much better than this card that you don't put it in, right? It's like when Yu-Gi-Oh! Players were going 10 years ago, Raigeki is so broken, we got to ban it. Or was it 20 years ago? And nowadays, it's just like, who cares about Raigeki, right? Maybe there's a point in time there, but I just don't see a point in time in the next 10 years, right? Let's put it like that, where this card is gone from your G-Zone. It just negates a whole mechanic. That's your opponent's field, right? Your opponent has a field, they have resist, whatever. See you later. That's it. So I feel like there should have been a cost associated with this, but there isn't, because turning a card face up in the G-Zone is not a cost, right? Let's talk about Marduk as well. I think Marduk is a midly designed card going into maybe bad design, because again, there is kind of no way you can deny this card, yeah? And there is no downsides to this card. Okay, it needs Counterblast 1. Right? It needs Counterblast 1. That's pretty bad. But what, you go first, and you have 1 damage, which you can now get with Heal Guardians. you can just stride straight up. Okay, you need Soul Blast 6, but the entire gimmick of Genesis is soul charging. And okay, you can say you have to use Genesis's gimmick in order to pop off, but soul charging is not hard in Genesis. Let's put it like that. It is not hard. You also get 0 downsides. So if you triggered or anything like that, then you get the power. So ideally, like, the good thing about this is that it works with like Astral Poets and things like that, which will put a lot of drive checks and a lot of trigger power on your Vanguard. But then there's just no downside, right? There's just no downside. Just go up, like CB1 Soul Blast 6. Okay, that's the downside, but it's not a huge downside. You just go into this and go bam. Your opponent better guard this, or they're going to be feeling very bad. The last card that kind of ignores mechanics, I'd have to say, is the Neo Nectar one. But I have to say, this is actually a better design card, right? This is a better design card. It does ignore, right, any kind of grade 2 gaming, but the cost associated with this card is very, very different from Marduk, right? You have to retire tokens. Yeah, you have to retire 2 tokens, and it's a counterblast one. And it comes out in like the main phase, and it doesn't get the trigger powers and the criticals and all that of whatever you triggered. It just gets a straight up 10k and +1 crit. Now, there might become a point where this card becomes broken. But again, every time you want to, because you can, like, one thing you can do with this that you can't do with Marduk is you can keep on like doing this in the main phase repeatedly. But the cost associated with doing that is quite high, right? Every time you need to do it, you need counterblast 1. So and require retire 2 token units. So there's already like a limit there. But the other thing is, like, the value that you get from this by just superior striding is not that amazing anyway. And also, sure, tokens are pretty easy to come by with Neo Nectar, but in a way, like, because you have to sacrifice that stuff, it's not like you're turning your whatever you got for free, which you normally want to keep because they just stay and keep value. You're getting rid of them. You're actually just getting rid of them. So it's actually a neg. There's actually a neg associated with it versus just Marduk going into CB1, Soul Blast 6 that other units probably just do. They come into play Soul Charge X, right? And then just pop off, right? So because there is much more restrictions with the Neo one, I think it is better design. And it's just like, because the effect is just superior striding, it's having these kind of like these vanilla very power levels with it makes it just better. It's actually like better. So I'm gonna put this one into okay design. Now, this could be influenced by the fact that Neo Nectar just sucks, but I see, if I look into the future and see a good Neo Nectar deck, maybe this is still just run as like a one-off, so you can just get into like kind of a better grade 3. Like, you have to remember, like, grade 3s also are relatively okay, and some of the Neo Nectar grade 3s are actually not bad. They enable multi-attacks, but if you go into this, then it's not like you're copying the heart, or you're like doing everything first and then going into this during the battle phase. You're just going straight into, you're either like doing a main phase effect and then just free-striding to this, and that's it, right? There's no world where it's like you get to like get in like on attack effects that can like make multi-attack from your Vanguard happen. So that's why it's an okay design. That's basically why it's an okay design, but otherwise it will just kind of drop down. Other cards that have like niche value, right? I think the Nubatama is straight up okay design. The Gold Paladin as well, right? They just have some like nice niche value that I like. Also, I think the Varian is okay design too, right? These are all cards that you don't like, that don't actually glue the clan together. I guess you could say the Nubatama one kind of does, because overall Nubatama first strides are also not great, but they're just fine. They're just fine, right? I think another good card, I have to say, a well-designed card. Or maybe this shouldn't be well-designed. I think your Vet is overall kind of well-designed. Should it? Maybe not. Because they did design... Okay, I have to put okay design here. Let's put it okay. Because they designed Dark Lord Princess before. And they designed this card. So they know that you can Princess into her. And then it makes other cards very, very strong. So, but will this card ever be borderline broken? I don't think so. But I just think the fact that Dark Lord Princess existed and they printed this is kind of bad, right? If I was... But that's a problem with Dark Lord Princess, right? It's kind of a problem with Dark Lord Princess more than this card. So maybe I can put this in well design. This works well with V-Decks as well, right? This actually works well with old G decks, which is a nice thing because it makes them that Excel circle, and then you can kind of play V in G. So it makes a lot of cool things like old Harry useful. Right now, okay, the reason why it's good again is because of things like Dark Lord Princess, Nightmare Dolls are like really powerful, but you could say that this is because of the entire engine with that, and that's why they're really strong. If that didn't exist, then Yvette will be fine. I think that's fine, right? It's not even an... It's like a good card to go into. You could say it's niche, but it does give a lot of value to other things too, like old Pale Moon deck. So I think it's a well-designed. It's actually a well-designed card. Momo. I think Momo is actually a well-designed card too, right? It is, you could say it's pretty boring. It is just a restander, right? Okay, it stands again. That's cool. But it's in OTT, where all your first strides are kind of bad. A lot of times you just either want to G-Guard into like Ichikishima, or you want to just stay at play a big grade 3, like just right up to grade 3, and then just like bash your opponent. I think this gives you some value. Like, it's not just G-Guard into Ichikishima every game. You can go into Momo, and then the way that Momo is costed is also very, very good in that you can discard. You discard before your drive checks, and that is actually a huge difference, right? Discarding before drive checks means you have to decide right now what is like the worst. You have to actually like triage your hand into going, I can get rid of these cards, and then maybe I will drive check into something good or something. You actually have to use your brain a bit to know what to discard. So just by doing that, and the fact that you discard 3, because discarding 3 is not easy, right? It's not easy, especially on like ideally your first stride. If you go into this the second stride, maybe it's easier, but then like you have other cards. You have Ichikishima, so I don't know why you'd be going to that, but this is fine. I think the fact that it's costed this way makes this card very, very good. Also, it's like, you could say it's broken, but that's also because of other cards in the game right now that are making it broken. One thing is just like Kaliko, right? Kaliko making this card like with Amaterasu super gimmick play. I think it's more of a Kaliko problem than it's actually a Momo problem. But the fact is, now your stride for OTT is not just Ichikishima. It's actually Ichikishima or Momo. You have to make a decision. Maybe most of the time it's still Ichikishima, but at least you have a different option, which is pretty nice. Next card that is good design, well designed. I actually think the Angel Feather one is really, really good. Very, very creative. Although Angel Feather as a whole is not great at the moment, right? It hasn't made a huge splash. The fact is that it has, I think it's the first card that allowed you to have extra damage in the damage zone, right? And that fits the Angel Feather aesthetic very, very well. Also, the secondary effect where you have a certain, like a guard restrict, that guard restrict kind of also makes that very, very cool, because you can make huge amounts of like discards from your opponent if they want to guard. It's a huge threat. It's a great stride for Angel Feather, I think. Unfortunately, like maybe Angel Feather will become really, really good in the future. And I think this will be a key component of that, but right now it's not. But I think the creativity of this card and just overall, it might become broken. It actually might become broken. Maybe I shouldn't put in well design. But I think the creativity of this and how they attempted to help Angel Feather with this card is quite fitting for the clan. So I think I'll put it in well design. I'll put it in well designed for now. I actually think the Mega Colony one is okay design. I'm not sure if this is bias. I actually like the idea of exhausting your opponent's G-Zone. And I think getting like, I think a lot of people don't realize like it does give quite a lot of power to the front row. And it does open up some weird, boring ways you might be able to play Mega Colony. I think there could be more that you could tack onto its effects, but then you run the risk of it becoming super broken, right? You could, like, if you attach like a floodgate effect to this as well, damn, this card will be too broken. So the fact that it's just straight up slowly exhausting your opponent's G-Zone, I think fits quite well. But if you think about it, in the ideal world where you stride this card, is that your opponent will be like 3 strides in, as if that ever happens anymore, right? But then you suddenly stride this and go, hey, you're on 5 damage, my front row gets a bunch of power, and then you run under the G-Zone or something like that. I think that sounds pretty cool, right? Just because of the way that you add another way that you can probably play Mega Colony, which is exhausting your opponent's resources, is quite nice. But then they started designing cards that don't flip anymore, so this card becomes a bit worse. I would love. I think this card is okay design. I don't think there's a world where this could be actually broken, but I think it's quite creative, and it's not as super bad as everyone gives it. Right? I think the Nova one insanely bad. This one, at least there is something you can do with it. You know, maybe it should be mid. Maybe it should be mid, but I think mid is like extremely uncreative cards, so I think this is there. The DI one, I think this one should be. I think this should be well. Like the problem with the DI card is that it was released at a time when Gasteel was still around, and Gasteel is super busted. Now, would you ever counterblast one for this card? I think you would. I've seen some lists want to play this as like this kind of niche first stride where you have like nothing better to do, but this card at least lets you play conservatively. So I think it's okay. I think this is okay, right? This is just a nice niche card, right? Niche card. Should I just say Cyclone? Cyclone is a bad design. Cyclone it encourages people to play effectless cards, and I mean it's the first attempt at making kind of like a theme, right? But you kind of chose. Well, it's not the first step at making a theme. Like sub-clans are a theme, but this is also kind of like the vanilla theme, which is a very boring theme. So I think overall it's just like a bad idea on top of a bad idea, and then that's what we have is Cyclone, right? Because again, they released Zarzan at the same time as this as well. So actual terrible design. Actual terrible design. Gogrok Dragon. I think Gogrok Dragon has some really cool vibes of it, right? Being able to go into... I think Gogrok is well designed, even though like Time Leap is not a great thing, right? But this lets you go into a lot of your V Gear Chronicle stuff, as well as still maintaining synergy with G stuff. So I think the fact that you have this doesn't, like, again, it doesn't have to make your deck broken or tier 1. It just has to have good synergy and make it relevant. I think Gogrok is quite good. Right? I think Gogrok does both of those things quite well, so it deserves its well-designed slot. Yeah. Bad Bounty. Bad Bounty, I think, is also well-designed. It not only fits a good niche within Grand Blue, which already has a lot of things, it actually makes a different variants of Grand Blue well, right? Grand Blue, you kind of thought was a huge multi-attacking clan. This adds to the multi-attack, but it lets you have Vanguard restand, as well as solve some of its like weird problems against like when they kind of somehow lock your field, or like, you know, make you not able to call. This at least gives you an out, and I think it's efficiently costed, as well as it lets you use your grade 3 cards as well. So overall, just it has the whole package. Overall, a well-designed card, right? And then lastly, with the Great Nature one, the Great Nature one has like maybe it's hard to use it, but again, it fits a niche. I think it fits a niche. You have decks that would run it, just not deck out, and this is Great Nature is a clan that does deck out quite a lot, and it lets you have creative uses with it too. Let's be honest, right? You can stack your triggers at the bottom of the deck, and then just win. Just trigger a lot and win, and it'll let you have weird outs. Let you have weird win conditions. And then lastly, we have the Spike Brothers one. I don't know if I should put this in well design or okay design. It fits pretty well with like the idea of Spike Brothers being able to like do like multi attacks and then moving the force markers around, right? But then again, does it do enough? The Soul is quite important. It's like a Soul Blast 2. I feel like if it was like a Soul Blast 1, then maybe it'd just be absolutely perfect. But Soul Blast 2, I think, is quite heavy, even though there are ways for Spike Brothers to make Soul. I feel like Soul Blast 2 is just slightly too much, right? I think it's just slightly too much. So I think I'm going to put this in okay design. Just okay design. Just the cost is a bit... Maybe it's a bit high, right? I'm sure Spike Brothers players, let me know in the comments below. Again, should this be well designed or okay design? But I think that is it. That is pretty much it. In terms of well designed, I think in terms of design, right? Basically every single thing at the top here is quite good. Right, is quite good. And then the okay ones, they do benefit, but again, it fits like a niche. And some of these, maybe like the Deprenor is just like more creative than a niche. Then the mid ones, again, the mid ones do solve problems, but they also can create their own problems in the future. Some more than others, right? And then the bad design, just not very good cards in my opinion. And then terrible design, just why did they print this? Why did they print this? So, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Maybe another set or something else. Peace. Bye.